The monitors were still beeping when they told her to leave. In front of doctors, nurses, and patients, Ava Morgan, a respected nurse with 6 years of flawless service, was blamed for a medical crisis she had tried to prevent. Security moved closer. Her co-workers looked away. Ava placed her badge on the counter and walked out, but nobody knew what was pulling into the hospital parking lot. A wounded U.S. general had just arrived, and the first person he asked for was Ava Morgan. The nurse they had fired only minutes earlier was about to expose a secret powerful people had spent years trying to hide. And before the day was over, everything would change. A cold October wind swept through Cedar Ridge, Colorado, beneath a gray sky as dawn settled over the city, and the hospital lights glowed against the morning darkness. Ava Morgan arrived at St. Gabriel Regional Medical Center at 6:40 a.m. 20 minutes before her shift, exactly as she had done for nearly 6 years. At 31 years old, Ava was neither the loudest nor the most ambitious nurse in the emergency department. She stood about 5 feet 7 inches tall with chestnut brown hair usually tied into a practical ponytail. Her green eyes carried a quiet alertness that years of emergency medicine had sharpened. Most people noticed her calm voice before anything else. Patients trusted it. Families leaned on it. Ava had learned long ago that panic spread faster than any illness. Her life outside the hospital was simple. She rented a small apartment overlooking the edge of Cedar Ridge, lived alone, and spent most evenings reading or hiking nearby trails. Few people knew much about her past. Even fewer knew why there was a 2-year gap in her employment history before she arrived at St. Gabriel. Ava preferred it that way. The emergency department was already busy when she stepped onto the floor. Ambulances had delivered several patients overnight, and nurses hurried between treatment bays. Ava exchanged greetings with coworkers before heading toward Bay 4. The patient waiting there was Daniel Brooks, a 46-year-old construction contractor. Daniel was a broad-shouldered man with thinning blonde hair, rough hands scarred by years of physical labor, and tired blue eyes. He looked more frightened than sick. Sweat covered his forehead, despite the cool room temperature. "My chest feels tight," Daniel said, "and I can't catch my breath." Ava listened carefully while reviewing his chart. Something bothered her immediately. Daniel's breathing pattern was subtle but unusual. His oxygen levels were slightly lower than expected, and his blood work contained abnormalities that did not fit a simple anxiety diagnosis. Ava ordered follow-up testing and carried the results to Dr. Richard Coleman. Richard Coleman was 53 years old and had led emergency medicine at St. Gabriel for more than a decade. He was tall, lean, and sharply dressed even during hospital shifts. Gray streaks ran through his dark hair, and his clean-shaven face rarely showed emotion. Younger physicians admired him. Many nurses feared him. Years earlier, Coleman had built a reputation for brilliant decision-making, but success had slowly transformed confidence into arrogance. He disliked being questioned, especially by nurses. "Borderline results," Ava explained. "His oxygen trend is dropping. I think we should investigate further." Coleman glanced at the chart for only a few seconds. "Anxiety," he said. "Doctor, his breathing has changed significantly." "I said anxiety." Ava nodded and walked away. But uneasiness settled deep inside her chest. Experience had taught her to trust that feeling. For the next hour she checked on Daniel repeatedly. Each visit increased her concern. His skin appeared paler, his breathing became more labored. His oxygen levels continued drifting downward. Twice more she approached Coleman. Twice more he dismissed her concerns. By late morning, disaster arrived. Daniel suddenly gasped for air and collapsed backward onto his bed. Alarms erupted throughout the bay. Nurses rushed in. Respiratory therapists appeared seconds later. Equipment rolled across the floor. Voices overlapped in urgent commands. Ava moved instinctively, securing airways, preparing medications, and assisting wherever needed. The room became a storm of controlled chaos. After nearly 20 minutes, the team stabilized Daniel and transferred him toward intensive care. The crisis was over, or so Ava thought. As the room emptied, Dr. Coleman turned toward her. The entire department seemed to fall silent. "You pushed unnecessary interventions," Coleman said coldly. Ava stared at him. "What? You undermined physician judgment. You created confusion during patient management." Several nurses exchanged uncomfortable glances. Ava felt heat rising behind her eyes. "I followed protocol." "No," Coleman replied. "You created this situation." The accusation hung in the air. Everyone knew the truth. Nobody spoke. Minutes later, Ava was escorted to administration. The decision came quickly. Pending investigation, immediate suspension. Her badge suddenly felt heavier than it ever had before. She returned to the nurses' station one final time. Around her, doctors typed reports. Nurses avoided eye contact. Patients continued arriving. Life moved on. Slowly, Ava unclipped her badge and placed it on the counter. 6 years of service reduced to a piece of plastic. Without another word, she picked up her bag and walked toward the hospital exit. Nobody stopped her, nobody defended her. And as the cold Colorado wind greeted her outside, Ava Morgan believed the worst day of her life had only just begun. Cold wind hit Ava Morgan's face the moment she stepped outside St. Gabriel Regional Medical Center. Her badge was gone. Her career seemed to be slipping away behind the hospital doors. For the first time in years, she felt completely powerless. Then she heard the engines. 3 black military SUVs rolled through the hospital entrance in perfect formation. They moved slowly but carried an unmistakable authority. Ava stopped walking. Something about them immediately felt wrong for a quiet Colorado hospital. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Ava hesitated before answering. "Is this Ava Morgan?" a woman's voice asked. The tone was calm, direct, and disciplined. "Yes. Do not leave the hospital grounds. We need you back inside immediately." Ava frowned. "Who is this?" "My name is Major Rachel Carter." Rachel Carter was a 38-year-old United States Army officer. She stood nearly 6 feet tall, with dark brown hair pulled into a tight bun and sharp gray eyes that rarely missed details. Years of military service had given Rachel a controlled demeanor. She spoke little, observed everything, and had earned a reputation for remaining calm even during combat operations. "We have a patient arriving," Rachel continued. "I'm suspended." "I know. Then call the hospital. The patient specifically requested you." Ava felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Who?" There was a brief pause. "Lieutenant General Ethan Walker." For a second, Ava forgot how to breathe. Memories rushed back. Dust, gunfire, darkness. A bridge in a foreign country years earlier. A wounded officer refusing to lose consciousness, while Ava fought to keep him alive. "Ethan Walker?" she whispered. "Yes." Ava turned toward the military vehicles. The rear door opened. Several soldiers stepped out first. Then she saw him. Lieutenant General Ethan Walker lay partially reclined inside the vehicle. At 56 years old, Ethan still possessed the commanding presence that had once made entire battalions trust him with their lives. His square jaw was covered with short gray stubble. Deep lines marked years of responsibility and sacrifice. His silver-streaked hair was damp with sweat, and his pale skin immediately alarmed Ava. The moment she reached the vehicle, her medical instincts took over. His breathing was shallow, too shallow. His pulse was weak, dangerously weak. A large field dressing covered the left side of his abdomen. "What happened?" Ava asked. Rachel's expression darkened. "Vehicle collision last night." Ava examined the dressing. The wound itself looked professionally treated. The problem was what was happening underneath. Internal bleeding. She could feel it. Ethan opened his eyes. Despite the pain, a faint smile appeared. "You still notice things faster than everyone else." Ava shook her head. "You shouldn't be talking. Good to see you too." His voice was weaker than she remembered. That frightened her more than the blood. "We need a trauma bay now," Ava said. Rachel nodded immediately. Together, they pushed the gurney toward the hospital entrance. Inside the lobby, several employees froze. The suspended nurse had returned. But Ava ignored every stare. Her focus remained entirely on Ethan. As they entered the emergency department, Dr. Richard Coleman emerged from a hallway. His expression immediately hardened. "What is she doing back here?" Nobody answered. Ava didn't even look at him. She was already checking Ethan's pulse again. It felt weaker. Much weaker. A dangerous realization settled into her mind. The general had far less time than anyone realized. And if surgery didn't happen soon, the man whose life she had once saved on a battlefield might die before sunset. For the second time in her life, Ethan Walker's survival was resting in Ava Morgan's hands. The moment Ava Morgan entered Trauma Bay 1, everything else disappeared. The suspension, the accusations, and Dr. Richard Coleman's glare no longer mattered. Only Ethan Walker mattered. The monitors confirmed what Ava had feared. Blood pressure, 78/46. Oxygen saturation, falling. Pulse, weak and irregular. Internal bleeding, severe internal bleeding. Ava moved without hesitation. "Prepare blood products. Full trauma panel. Call surgery now." Several nurses immediately obeyed. One of them was Emily Dawson, a 28-year-old trauma nurse, with short blonde hair and freckles scattered across her pale cheeks. Emily had always admired Ava's calm professionalism, but had been too intimidated by hospital politics to openly support her. Watching Ava work now, Emily felt something changing inside her. Dr. Coleman stepped forward. "You don't have authority here." Ava never looked up, "And if we wait another 10 minutes, he'll be dead." The room fell silent. Nobody challenged her, because everyone could see the numbers. Even Coleman. Within minutes, a surgeon arrived. Dr. Nathan Reeves was a 49-year-old trauma surgeon with broad shoulders, dark skin weathered by years of long shifts, and sharp brown eyes that missed little. Unlike Coleman, Nathan cared far more about results than hierarchy. He studied the scans for less than 30 seconds. "She's right," Nathan said. Coleman's jaw tightened. Nathan pointed toward the operating room. "We move now." As the surgical team prepared Ethan for transport, Ava walked beside the gurney. Ethan's eyes opened briefly. Despite the pain, recognition remained. "You still save people by making enemies," he said weakly. Ava almost smiled. "You always talk too much." For a moment, both remembered another night years ago. A desert road. An ambush. A burning vehicle. A younger Ethan refusing to lose consciousness, while Ava treated his wounds under enemy fire. The memory vanished as the operating room doors closed. For the first time all day, Ava exhaled. Major Rachel Carter approached her. The officer's expression remained controlled, but concern lingered behind her eyes. "He'll survive if surgery starts immediately," Ava said. Rachel nodded. "I know." There was a pause. Then Rachel handed Ava a small sealed envelope. "No. Return address. It arrived at our temporary command station this morning." Ava frowned. Inside was a single photograph. The image showed Ethan entering a parking garage 2 nights earlier. Standing across the street was a man holding a camera. Ava stared. She recognized the location. It was Cedar Ridge. Whoever had been watching Ethan had known he was coming. Rachel lowered her voice. "Ethan wasn't in Colorado by accident." "What do you mean?" Rachel looked around before answering. "For 6 months he's been investigating stolen federal data connected to a classified military medical program." Ava felt her stomach tighten. "What does that have to do with this hospital?" "That's what we're trying to find out." Rachel hesitated. "The leak appears to originate somewhere inside St. Gabriel." Ava stared at her. The hospital. The same hospital that had suspended her only hours earlier. The same hospital where someone had worked very hard to remove her from duty before Ethan arrived. The realization sent a chill through her. "You're saying someone knew he was coming." "We believe so. And someone wanted me gone." Rachel's silence was answer enough. Ava looked toward the operating room doors. Everything suddenly felt different. The suspension, the accusations, the timing. None of it felt random anymore. For years, Ava had buried her military past and convinced herself that chapter of her life was over. Now it was standing directly in front of her again. and somewhere inside St. Gabriel Regional Medical Center, someone was desperate to keep a dangerous secret hidden. As the operating room light remained illuminated above the closed doors, Ava realized the worst part wasn't that Ethan had been targeted. The worst part was that the attack might have started long before he ever arrived in Cedar Ridge. The operating room light finally switched off nearly 3 hours later. Ava Morgan was sitting alone in a corner of the surgical waiting area when Dr. Nathan Reeves emerged through the double doors. The surgeon looked exhausted. His dark skin appeared slightly pale beneath the fluorescent lights, and small lines around his eyes revealed the strain of a difficult operation. "He made it," Nathan said. For the first time all day, Ava felt some of the weight leave her chest. "Ethan is stable. The spleen was badly damaged, but we stopped the bleeding." Ava nodded quietly, but relief lasted only a few seconds. Major Rachel Carter approached from the opposite hallway carrying a tablet. Rachel's expression was serious. "We may have a bigger problem." She handed the device to Ava. The screen displayed internal hospital records. Someone had been accessing security footage from the emergency department throughout the day. Not viewing it, editing it, Ava felt her stomach tighten. "Who? We don't know yet." At that moment another voice interrupted them. "Ava," they turned. Linda Torres was standing nearby. Linda Torres was 61 years old, and had worked as a respiratory therapist for more than 3 decades. Her silver hair was cut short around a weathered face marked by years of night shifts and difficult cases. Linda was known throughout the hospital for being blunt, honest, and impossible to intimidate. After losing her husband to cancer 12 years earlier, she had become even less willing to tolerate dishonesty from people in power. Linda stepped closer. "I kept notes," Ava frowned. "What kind of notes?" "The Daniel Brooks case." Linda opened her phone. Every important event had been recorded. The time Ava reported abnormal lab results. The time Dr. Richard Coleman dismissed them. The time Daniel's condition worsened. The time the emergency response began. Everything. "You documented all of this?" Ava asked. Linda nodded. "I had a feeling something wasn't right." Rachel studied the records. This could help prove Ava followed protocol. "It gets better," Linda said. She lowered her voice. A technician entered the security server room, less than an hour after Ava was suspended. Ava exchanged a glance with Rachel. "Who?" "Brandon Pierce." Brandon Pierce was a 27-year-old hospital, its specialist. Tall and thin, with sandy brown hair and narrow features. Brandon was usually quiet and avoided conflict. Most employees barely noticed him. He had joined the hospital 8 months earlier after leaving a cybersecurity company in Denver under circumstances few people understood. "What was he doing?" Ava asked. "No idea, but he stayed inside nearly 30 minutes. Rachel immediately pulled out her phone. "Find him." One of the soldiers left without asking questions. The pieces were starting to connect, too quickly. An hour later, another discovery arrived. Emily Dawson rushed into the waiting area, carrying a printed chart. Her face was pale. "Ava, you need to see this." The chart belonged to Daniel Brooks. Ava studied the records. Something unusual appeared in the medication history. A red warning flag. A dangerous interaction alert. The system had automatically detected a potentially harmful combination of medications several days earlier. Yet someone had manually dismissed the warning. Ava stared at the screen. "Who authorized this?" Emily swallowed. The answer appeared beside the electronic signature. Dr. Victor Lang. Neither Ava nor Rachel recognized the name immediately. Then, Rachel's eyes narrowed. "I know him." Dr. Victor Lang was a 50-year-old physician consultant, contracted through a federal medical research program. He was known for his intelligence, meticulous attention to detail, and political connections inside several healthcare organizations. More troubling, Ethan Walker's investigation had uncovered Victor Lang's name multiple times during the past year. Rachel slowly looked up from the chart. "He shouldn't be connected to Daniel Brooks." "But he is," Ava said. The room fell silent. The dismissed warning, the altered camera footage, the suspension, the mysterious accident involving Ethan. Each discovery pointed toward the same conclusion. Someone inside St. Gabriel Regional Medical Center wasn't simply covering mistakes. Someone was actively manipulating evidence. And for the first time, Ava realized the corruption hidden inside the hospital might reach far beyond Dr. Richard Coleman. Somewhere inside the building, a much larger network was beginning to reveal itself. The sun had barely risen over Cedar Ridge when the operation began. From the windows of St. Gabriel Regional Medical Center, employees watched unfamiliar vehicles pull into the parking lot. They were not ambulances. They were not local police cars. They belonged to federal investigators. Within minutes, agents entered the building carrying warrants. The atmosphere changed instantly. Conversations stopped. Administrators closed office doors. People who had spent months feeling untouchable suddenly looked nervous. Ava Morgan stood beside Major Rachel Carter near the ICU nurses' station as the investigation unfolded. Across the hall, Lieutenant General Ethan Walker watched from a wheelchair. He was still recovering. His face thinner than usual, and his movements slower, but his eyes remained sharp. Years of military leadership had taught Ethan patience. He had spent months following fragments of evidence. Now those fragments were finally becoming a complete picture. The lead investigator was Special Agent Rebecca Lawson. Rebecca Lawson was a 44-year-old federal investigator with shoulder-length black hair streaked with silver and dark brown eyes that seemed to examine everything at once. Her calm demeanor hid a relentless determination. 10 years earlier, corruption inside a government agency had destroyed her father's career, despite his innocence. Since then, Rebecca Lawson had dedicated her life to exposing institutional corruption wherever she found it. By noon, investigators had recovered the deleted files from Brandon Pierce's backup drive. Then they recovered more. The hospital's external backup servers still contained copies of the erased security footage. Nothing had truly disappeared. Inside a conference room converted into a temporary evidence center, another recording showed Dr. Richard Coleman dismissing the warnings without reviewing the full chart. Another showed Ava repeatedly attempting to escalate concerns. Another showed Daniel's condition worsening exactly as Ava had predicted. The room became very quiet. For months, Coleman had relied on authority. Now the evidence spoke louder. Agent Lawson looked up from the screen. She followed protocol every step of the way. Nobody disagreed. Hours later, investigators uncovered something even worse. Medical records from multiple patients had been altered. Drug interaction alerts had been manually disabled. Treatment histories had been edited. Several files connected directly to federal medical research programs overseen by Victor Lang. The pattern was undeniable. Someone had been using the hospital to hide illegal activities. By late afternoon, Dr. Richard Coleman finally emerged from his office. Gone was the confident department chief. Everyone knew. His face looked pale. The arrogance had disappeared. 2 federal agents approached him. One presented a warrant. The other read his rights. Coleman glanced around the hallway. Doctors, nurses, technicians, people he had intimidated for years. None of them stepped forward. None of them defended him. For a brief moment, his eyes found Ava. Perhaps he expected anger. Perhaps he expected satisfaction. Instead, Ava simply watched. The agents escorted him away. A few minutes later, warrants were also issued for Victor Lang and several outside associates connected to the federal investigation. The network was finally collapsing. 3 weeks later, St. Gabriel Regional Medical Center looked very different. New administrators had arrived. Policies had changed. Investigations were still ongoing. On a clear Monday morning, Ava walked through the hospital entrance once again. This time, no one avoided eye contact. Nurses greeted her warmly. Doctors nodded respectfully. Patients smiled when they recognized her. Waiting near the nurses' station stood Emily Dawson and Linda Torres. Both women were smiling. "You took your time coming back," Linda said. Ava laughed softly. "Needed a few days." Then she looked at the new identification badge waiting on the counter. Emergency Department Charge Nurse. For a moment, she simply stared at it, not because of the promotion, not because of the recognition, but because she remembered the day she had left this same building believing her career was over. Across the lobby, Ethan Walker stood near the entrance preparing to leave. His recovery had progressed remarkably well. He gave Ava a small nod. No speech, no dramatic goodbye, just mutual respect. The kind forged in difficult moments. Ava clipped the badge onto her uniform. The emergency department was already busy. Patients needed help. Monitors were sounding. Stretchers were moving. Life was continuing. And that was exactly why she had returned. Not for revenge, not for vindication, but because somewhere inside the hospital, someone needed a nurse. And this time, everyone in St. Gabriel, Regional Medical Center, knew exactly who Ava Morgan was. Sometimes God's greatest miracles do not come with flashing lights or dramatic signs. Sometimes they arrive through ordinary people who choose to do what is right when it would be easier to stay silent. Ava Morgan lost her position, her reputation, and almost her career, because she refused to ignore what she knew was true. Yet even in her darkest moment, God was already working behind the scenes. What looked like an ending became the beginning of something much greater. The truth was revealed, justice prevailed, and lives were saved because one person chose courage over fear. In our daily lives, we may never face the same battles Ava faced, but we all encounter moments when doing the right thing feels difficult. We all experience times when we feel misunderstood, overlooked, or treated unfairly. This story reminds us that God sees every act of kindness, every sacrifice, and every truth spoken in love. Even when others do not recognize it, God does. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs encouragement today. Leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from, or what lesson this story meant to you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories of faith, hope, courage, and God's amazing grace. May God bless you, protect your family, guide your steps, strengthen your heart during difficult times, and fill your life with peace, hope, and purpose. May His light shine upon you and your loved ones today, and always. Amen.